1984 by George Orwell. The novel describes a future world divided into three blocks: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. The regimented, oppressive world of Oceania is ruled by the party, which is led by a figure called the Big Brother, and is continuously at war with the other two states. In order to control people's lives, the party is implementing the Newspeak, an invented language with a limited number of words, and threatening them through the thought police. Free thoughts, sex, and any expression of individuality are forbidden, but the protagonist, Winston Smith, illegally buys a diary in which he begins to write his thoughts and memories, addressing them to the future generations. Well, the setting of the novel is Oceania, a large country including the Americas, the Atlantic Islands, Australia, and the southern portion of Africa as well. As Airstrip 1 that was previously England, the story takes place in a terrifying London in the year 1984 that is characterized by shortages, bomb sites, the regular failure of things to work properly, the prevailing squalor. So everything from this list he drew from real life. That is, it was something that was really happening during the Second World War. The party, we have talked about the Big Brother that led the party. So Oceania's political structure is divided into three parties in fact. They are called segments, but in fact Orwell recognized them as three different parties, embodying three completely different social classes. The inner party, that is the ruling class, consisting of less than 2% of the population. The outer party, that is the educated workers, 18–19% of the population. The proles, or the proletariat, the working class, the rest of the people. So Orwell wants the reader to see the class distinction in the three of them. And for a socialist, as he was, class distinctions meant the existence of conflict and the struggle. So I have mentioned in the plot the Big Brother. The Big Brother, in fact, 1984 is a satire on hierarchical societies which destroy fraternity. Hierarchical societies that were a reality during the Second World and even before. And the dictator is called the Big Brother, but he actually does not watch over his people as a brother should do. So doesn't watch or take care of anyone, simply controls them. How does he control everything? The Big Brother, in this society there is no privacy because there are monitors called telescreens watching every step people take. Love is forbidden, but there is the 2:08, and the country is in a perpetual state of war. So love is forbidden, sex is forbidden, thought is forbidden. The party has absolute control of the press, communication and propaganda. We know this word propaganda very well. It is present in every kind of tyrannical regime. And of course propaganda is the means by which the leader, the tyrant, manipulates people, manipulates the mind of people, making them believe something that is useful for his own interests. So the party has the complete control of the press, the communication, the language, history, thought. So the language is reduced in the newspeak, that is the official language of Oceania, that is such a poor language that it makes impossible, that prevents people from expressing their own ideas. And there is a manipulation of history, of thought. Personal thought is preventing from being expressed, and there is a manipulation of history, paradoxically, by means of the Ministry of Truth, for which Winston Smith works. So there is a complete manipulation of the past, of memory, and so we may say, with a modern term, a continuous production of fake news that completely delete what the truth and the past and history have been. So let's go back to the plot. Winston Smith works for the Ministry of Truth, where he writes historical records to suit the needs of the party. Another information about the name chosen for the protagonist. Why Winston Smith? Smith is the most common English surname in England and suggests his symbolic value. Smith stands for everyone, or at least the values that everyone should possess. Winston evokes Churchill's patriotic appeals for blood, toil, tears and sweat during the Second World War. So, symbolical name and surname. Winston is 39 and physically weak. He experiences alienation from society and feels a desire for spiritual and moral integrity. He wants to preserve the memory of the past, even though he works for the Ministry of Truth that paradoxically changes and modifies continuously reality, the truth, history. And it is the reason why he decides to buy a diary where he keeps memory of history and the past. He is in love with Julia and he remains loyal to her until his last torture experience, but Julia is more naive and pessimistic about the party, since she believes that it will never be overthrown. She is not much concerned with historical truth. She falls in love with Winston. The problem is that, let's go back to the plot, one night they are approached by O'Brien. O'Brien is a member of the inner party and tricks Winston and Julia into believing that he belongs to the secret brotherhood, that is a society which has as its purpose to overthrow the party. So he gives Julia and Winston the book written by Emmanuel Goldstein, that is the leader of this brotherhood, and this book is the manifesto of brotherhood. But one night, while Winston and Julia are reading in their room, some soldiers suddenly break in and arrest them. He is taken to the Ministry of Love, that instead is the Ministry of Hate, where he finds out that O'Brien is a party spy. He is tortured, brainwashed, and sent to room 101, that was the final destination for those who opposed the party, where Winston's will is finally broken. And he is released to the outside world. He has become a puppet in the hands of the party. He has lost his integrity and his memory, and when he meets Julia again, he no longer loves her. He has completely given up his identity and has learned to love the big brother. So the novel is set in a state of perpetual war, reminiscent of World War II. The idea for the three countries described in the book came to Orwell in 1943, the same year of the Tehran Conference, where U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill, and the Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin met to coordinate their military strategy against Germany and Japan and to make important decisions about the post-war world. So, the society described, although fictional, reflects the political atmosphere of the tyrannies in Spain. Don't forget that he also experienced the first and the Spanish War, Germany and the Soviet Union. That is why the novel is pervaded by descriptions of hunger, forced labor, mass torture and imprisonment, and perpetual monitoring by the authorities. That was something that people really experienced during the Second World War. The character of the big brother is both Stalin and Hitler, both real and terrifying leaders. One left side, the other right side. He was against any form of totalitarianism, either from the left or the right of the political spectrum. To conclude, 1984 is a dystopian novel. It is set in a grotesque, squalid and menacing London, as already said, and why is it a dystopian novel? While a utopia is an ideal or perfect community some writers have described to embody their ideals, a dystopia, on the contrary, shows a possible future society that is anything but ideal, that satirizes existing conditions of society. The novel does not offer any consolation, but reveals the author's acute sense of history and his sympathies with the millions of people persecuted and murdered in the name of totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century.